Kia ora, thank you Bethany, and thank you to the museum as well for including the outside on the inside, because quite often, you know, you come to things at the museum and it's just what's here, and I know that they've been working really, really hard to get it out there, and last week we had really a lot of fun with the museum staff out on the whenua, which you'll see photos of. But yeah, so thank you, and thank you all for coming to be interested. I know that a notice that I looked at for the museum said I was going to be talking about native plants today, and I think all plants for this project start with the children, so there's more children's photos in this show than there is plants. Okay, so Kōrta Pūkake started after the project started. Actually, we ran a project starting in 2000, and it took a couple of years before we decided on a name, but the name Kōrta Pūkake comes from a karakia, which means to plant, which is a line from a karakia to say to plant. So it's very much exactly what it says on the screen. Ngāti Whātua knew that in order to have a healthy iwi, for their hapu to be healthy, for their whenua to be healthy, those things had to come together and one to look after the other. And in which order, didn't matter, just had to be together. So we did that. And this is the land I got invited to in 2000. This picture's 2004. But it didn't have, you can only just start seeing the baby plants, but it's pretty much what it looked like in 2000, 85% grass. Not a lot of plants in sight, and it was a reaction to, the project began because this piece of land, which is one of the only privately owned reserves in Auckland that's opened up to the whole of the public to come in and join and to enjoy. It was, 85% grass, and the management plan, which was put out by the Reserves Board, which is 50% the landowners, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, and 50% the Auckland City Council, was supposed to be addressing how it's managed under the Ōrākei Act, which says it's to be maintained to an ecological standard. And we were looking for the ecological in the standard and found there was a lot of mowing in the standard. Something to the tune of about $180,000 worth of mowing to the standard, and not a lot of ecological. So the management plan at the time said that we wanted paths, roads, seats, rubbish bins, sculptures, and no one mentioned anything about plants. So the hapu came back and said, no, don't want any paths behind our houses. There's enough rubbish bins, paths and roads at the, up at the Domain and Cornwall Park and our other huge parks, so we don't want any of those things. This is what we want. We want plants. And we want plants for every reason, in every season. We want them for birds and for the children. We want them for medicine. We want, where are our birds, and you know, where are our tall trees for the carvers, and where are our plants for rāranga and for mahi toi in general, and for mahi kai, for eating and for providing for. So when I first came there, we spent a year asking the people, well, which plants do you want? And then looking at the records and saying which plants can live here, which plants did live here. And I think we got an initial menu of about 70 different species and decided where we'd start. So that was the first thing that came out of the plan back in 2000 was, where are all our plants? And yeah, where are all our birds? So with that plant food, we worked out the menu for every bird that could possibly live on the whenua rangatira. This reserve, the 48 hectare reserve, which runs from, if you don't know already, it runs from Ōkahu Bay, along Tamaki Drive, past Kelly Toltons, over the headland and all the way to Mission Bay. And no one had seen a kiriru for a very long time. The lawnmowers had chased away everything other than the pūkeko. And there was a beautiful looking golf course, if that's your version of beautiful, but there was no birds. And one of the biggest challenges at the time too was everyone had got used to the beautiful golf course look and the view out to the harbour and to Rangitoto, and you know, that's the place to go if you want to see the yachts going by on Auckland Anniversary Day. But there was none of these in the view, and so the first conflict that came about was the definition of what is aesthetic and what is beautiful in the view. And so while that debate was going on, we just kept planning for more plants for the birds. And not just the birds. I mean, we had the Bernadette Papa came and went house by house to everybody she knew that ever wanted anything up there. And it took a year to get in the shopping list. And my job as the project manager for Koto Pukaki was to get the shopping list, like the bird food list, together. And we worked out there was, as it says on the screen, we can all read, 67 different named varieties. But on the Whenua Rangatira, when we were taking stock of what was there, besides the 85% grass, there was 17 different named varieties of harakeke. And most people didn't want them. They only wanted 3 particular ones. So it was like, okay, we've got a bit of a menu, but what do we actually want to use? And even for the ones that we had, we didn't have enough of them. So in the last 10 years, we've divided up something like 7,000 harakeke and built from the existing stocks. And this is what we did. We looked and saw what we had, we divided them up, and these particular ones, they were growing at the time out on the tops of the cliffs above Tamaki Drive, in an area where pūtakawa had been falling down on Saturday mornings, and the traffic had to be stopped while the tow trucks came in and ripped the remaining parts of the pūtakawa off the cliff. And so part of the besides no paths and no rubbish bins was our cliffs are falling down, the whenua is ending up down by the sea again. There's areas on the map that were flooding, and so when we took stock, we found that a whole lot of these plants had just been planted in the wrong place. We actually had the plants, they just weren't where they needed to be, and these particular ones were all out growing really thick, heavy, gathering all the water that was sheeting over the golf course land and starting to drop away. So we took the plants we already had, we took them out, we divided them up, and in one morning for about, I think that 1,000 plus bout only took something like 45 minutes for 150 people to get back in the ground. It was fun. The shot below is 3 years on, so it doesn't take long. Those are all one variety, and in other areas we've planted ones like Takariko, which is good for lashings. These ones here, the yellow one is Parikori-tawa. It's the only naturally occurring yellow harakeke. Everything else has come from that, has been artificially manipulated and entering into every garden centre everywhere. The one in the middle is Taiore, which is a beautiful, beautiful harakeke with a different type of stripe. And the top one is Kohanga, and it's one of the weaver's golds. So what we found is, just with the people that were coming and planting these plants, the education began that not all harakeke are the same. And we certainly had lots of different ones to do it. You know, there was definitely this myth that, you know, plants are green and harakeke are all the same, and, you know, things are just for birds or just for eating or just for rongoa. And so the story began about the education that all these things overlapped into every area. And weavers cannot live with harakeke alone. And the next part of the shopping list was, oh, okay, well, what about our keke and pingao, which is yet to be put on the menu? What about our plants for dye, and where is the nearest source of the paru for the black? And it's not all about just making beautiful kete that will hang as artworks on walls. It was also about mahi kai for our food, not just eating it, but the things associated with eating it, like this lower picture. So for most restoration projects, the primary focus throughout Auckland and throughout New Zealand is actually just returning the birds or returning strong ecological habitats for riparian planting along streams for erosion. But Kota Pukaki is very much about the people associated with the whenua and the plants, their use. So here's your top golf course shot at the top. These were the only plants at the time, and so you can see as you're going around that to the right, we planted Harakiki again, everything from the whenua. And in my ignorance, when I had started back in, still in 2002, Alice Pihema's beautiful kuia, who was an expert in her field and very much a treasure for Ngāti Whātua, was heading up the restoration of the wharenui at Orake. It had been damaged in a fire, and they were putting back in 89 tukutuku panels to decorate the house. And I got a phone call saying, this weekend we're driving out to Piha and we're going to collect kākoho, which is the flowering stems of the toitoi. And in my ignorance, I said, why are we going all the way out there for? You've got 48 hectares out here. Why haven't we got it growing here? It seemed like a no-brainer to me. So come Tuesday, Auntie Alice turned up with a sack full of toitoi seed and went, here you go then. Get planting. And the next year we planted 2,500 toitoi. And it was the first time it had been in on the whenua for decades. The restoration on the wharenui had been completed, all the panels had been done, and now we have tens of thousands of kākoho that grow and flower every year. And it became an excellent way for Ngāti Whātua to be able to share something that was so important, or is so important, and that's manaakitanga, and to be able to koha out and to provide and to provide. So every year now, people come, weavers come from other restoration projects, and it is the centre of being able to say, have you got 1,000 of, and there's not many public parks, there's no other public parks that I know of in Auckland where you can come and get resources of the magnitude that you need to do serious restoration. And in the following 2 years they've begun the restoration, which is completed now, I think, for the Holy Sep. And yeah, it was just one example. So even though their work had done, and for the amount that they have, they don't need them for Ngāti Whātua at Orake, it's now become an area where it can be shared with whoever needs it. So besides the materials for weaving, or for mahitoi, for rongoa too, which I hadn't actually spoken much about at all, the next important thing in the shopping list when I got there was we've got a marae, and we've got lots of people. We've got papakainga, we've got people living all about. Where's all the food? I was talking about toitoi and 48 hectares, and everyone else is saying, well, come on, where's the food? So it's probably been the biggest challenge of the whole restoration project, to get a garden to keep going, to be sustainable, because of the people that come and go. And one of the biggest challenges at the beginning was everyone wanted to plant the garden, and we had a huge amount of compostable materials coming out of the wharekai after every hui, and nowhere to go, and everything at the time was going in a skip and going away. And they've sorted out that the marae is now as zero waste as it can possibly be at this time, and that 60% of what was going in the skip could actually be going in the garden. So we built gardens to take that material and practice kaitiakitanga in the kitchen. And then we joined in with the school that was on the marae at the time, and they started planting the garden. But what the challenge was is people often will give to a marae, they'll come to a marae and they'll koha to marae, but they don't want to go and take. So the garden was being grown and no one was eating it. It's like, So it became the use of the wharekai when there was tangi on, but not for the commercial 500 people coming for a hui from, say, AUT. So there's lots of challenges how to get the garden to flow. And then came along the Auckland City Mission Garden Club. The Auckland City Mission began bringing 30, 40 people at a time to our community planting days, and they just loved it. And they came and planted hard out, and they came and planted natives. And at the end of the planting season, they said, "Oh, can we just come every week and plant something?" And Ngāti Blair, who had started this project and headed it up, said, "Okay, well, enough about the natives. Don't you need to eat something at the Auckland City Mission?" So they started up a gardening club where Ngāti Whātua share some of the whenua, and they come twice a week for the last 4 years now, and they garden and they take it away and back to the Auckland City Mission to give out to other people. And for them, what they've told me is that it's an opportunity. When you don't have a house, you certainly don't have any land. When you don't have a home, you don't have a garden that you can nurture. So they've now got somewhere at least that they can garden. Some of them knew how to garden before, some of them hadn't been anywhere near one. Some of them only like digging, and they'll dig for days and don't want to plant anything. But it's whatever works for them. They come and they warm that space. They take their plants away and they come back, and they keep coming back. And in Auckland City, where it's 10% Māori, I think it's the latest statistics. Well, the statistics from Auckland City Mission is 80% of homeless are Māori. So it became very little about the gardening and a lot about somewhere to walk and be and stay and be able to dig and belong. So food was very much a connection for people to belong. It's really hard to grow a lot of plants to plant a lot of plants if you can't actually grow them yourself, because in the first years we were finding the plants were coming out of sheltered, lovely nurseries and getting up there and full on wind blast and suffering. So we've set up a harsh extreme nursery on the whenua, which is all managed by the hapu, and it's a place for learning and training. And also, if you're going to look after something, it's good to start at the beginning. So everyone that works there is part of the process, right from picking the seed, making the cuttings, planting the plants, taking them out. And a lot of other planting around Tāmaki, what happens is one person grows it, one person plants it, another crew maintain it, somebody else forgets it, there's a little bit of confusion, and another crew come in and fix it. And as a result, you haven't got the highest success rate that you can possibly have, because each person has a different level of, every crew, the person has a different level of buy-in. So we knew that to make this project actually work, we had to start right at the beginning, and it took 4 years to convince the powers that be that we could actually have a nursery. And these two men, Ngāti Blair and Te Hira Hawk, once those plants were growing, welcome the people 4 times a year, and they come and plant the plants. And on those Saturdays when people come, and they're once a month, 4 months during winter. We've just had our Matariki planting, our second one, still 2 to go. This planting here, it looks like there's not that many people there, but you can see by the trees that they've probably just gone to lunch. On a really horrible, rainy, cold day, like the last 2 we've just had, we probably would have about 35 people turn up that insist, no matter what they were planting, cycle all the way over from Maungawhau even in the pouring rain and say, no, can we just plant something? And as a result, we've never cancelled a planting day in the last 11 years. And 35 is a low number, 150 is kind of usually where it gets to. And they all look happy like that, even at the end of the day, honestly. Okay, you can't run a project with tens of thousands of plants and anywhere between 30 to 150 people turning up on good days and bad days without good staff. And a key component of this project is growing the staff alongside, growing the people, the volunteers, those children, alongside the project. So and this woman here, who has just grown so much in the last couple of years with the project, came to do community service and then insisted on staying. She came as a volunteer, she enrolled herself as a student, she just would not go home until they gave her a job. She's so dedicated, and she doesn't miss planting days either. And everything she learns, she gives back out, and it really is a theme of this project. The way these plants are growing is because everyone there is learning and growing with them and sharing it back out. So, yeah, and they start early asking questions. And there's been a little bit of debate. This picture was on Facebook about exactly what was being asked in this conversation. One theory was, have you got your learner's licence? But I know for a fact it was, can my cousins have a ride on the back of the quad bike? And the shot, for OSH reasons I can't show you, was 10 children her age having a ride around the whenua going, yeah! So these staff members, both the one on the left, Wayne Walker, who's also my cousin, he has worked with this project for 8 years and is now doing other things, but he comes and goes and is always there for support. And Jeremy Robb, who is one of our supervisors, it's a very dedicated bunch of people that always want to learn. And they pass on their knowledge to the rangatahi. Now, as I said, we're growing these people alongside in the knowledge and retaining it, restoring it, and circulating it. It really is a living entity between these rangatahi, the people of this project, and the plants. This isn't actually on the whenua rangatira, it's where they took what they learnt there and they took it to Maungawhau. And I was quite amazed because you can't see in this shot that later on it was the day that Auckland got hit by a tornado. And these young men got called in to carry up 3,500 plants up Maungawhau, up a mountain, from the access path from the access road that week the council decided to shut the roads for maintenance. They carried them all and they complained, not once. They just did it, and they're incredible. And they're all in study. Everyone that works on the project are doing the NZQA at some level in horticulture and conservation. Now, those same rangatahi, some of them are still there or they've gone on to other jobs that we found them. They're also involved in the project that Beth's put together, Urban Life, and it's looking at how Ngāti Whātua rangatahi can be part of a larger program, but looking at kaitiakitanga about the trees, coming into the museum, looking at getting inspiration from here, and as I said, taking it back outdoors, working with artists, learning another form of craft to translate to how they see the world and how they see the world, to put it back where the plants are. So that was just the beginning of a session and starting to do the artwork that is going to be a year-long project. And again, 4 days of rain before that could go up, so they sort of just started. Besides growing the people from Ngāti Whātua and the rangatahi, we also share everything we have with anyone that will listen, because we know that there's just so much work in the environment to do, and we certainly can't do it by ourselves. And this man on our right is Nick, who's brought his son along, and he's been part of a program that has been running for the last 4 years, and it's training community coordinators. If we're going to seriously put in the numbers that we need more people passionate about plants to share it with their kids and with other projects. I also worked out that if you're going to get people to come in and give up all their Saturdays over winter and not see their families, it's not really going to work on top of their weekly day job. If they're going to do that, a lot of people won't enrol in projects just because they can't see their families, they can't take them, they can't get daycare, they can't get someone to look after them. These guys come out for anywhere between 8 and 10 Saturdays a year. So we made the project for the coordination program for the entire family. They can bring whoever they want, and they learn each week about whether it's the plants or just how to run the project, but also last weekend they had to work out how to get a story and tell a story, and I think Nick had his best week because his son was actually listening and relaying stories between them all day. This is Yvonne. She doesn't have children to bring, but she does have plants to learn, and this is her method. And the Kotapukaki project is really about whatever works for you, however you can get it into you and out to the world, do it. And we set challenges. It's not about, you know, we can plant anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000 plants in 3 hours on a Saturday. We can go hard out and we can and get all the stats done. But my thing is, it's never gonna flourish and grow unless we know what we're engaging with. So it's how many plants you actually can meet, learn, introduce yourself to, find the story of, and belong with you. So that challenge was, which plant, you have to know the plant, the name of the plant you're planting, and everyone's like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. How am I going to do this? Quick, someone get me a pen. Now, here's our mate from the City Mission. He comes every year to every planting and does a lot of directing. It's fantastic. And did you guys know who the guy is on the left? It's Matua Alex from their school. And so Hari brings the City Mission. Hari brings the City Mission, and Matua Alex had bought the school. And it was one of the few times, you know, if you're one of the they'd rather be called streeties than homeless, but if you're one of the streeties that doesn't have a lot of interaction with the community on a daily basis en masse and just be treated as part of the community on a daily basis en masse, then hanging out with the school kids for the day is just so energy giving, and all learning together. This young woman is from the Auckland, Volunteering Auckland, who look after 900 different charities and marry up volunteers. They never miss a planting day as well. And it's not all about hard work. It's a lot about playing. Now the plants behind this young man are about 8 years old, and as I said, you know, it was the golf course 10 years ago, and we planted, I'll tell you in a minute how many we've planted, but these ones were planted 8 years ago, and what we spent the other weekend doing was putting back through the next layer of plants. Again, a lot of restoration projects sort of plant the first lot of bird food and then hope the birds will come to do the rest of the job. And we don't believe that there's birds close enough to do all of the job. They can only do some of it. So we spent this, where this man is running, we interplanted everything with Kereru chocolate. It was good. Now, I did think that you came to hear about native plants today. And like the children or the City Mission or the school teachers and families, the plants are just as varied and multi-purpose. And the one on the left is koromiko, and we plant this because, besides the fact that it's beautiful, it has beautiful properties when you've got a sore tummy. It has fantastic flowers for bringing the blue butterflies. Children often have swan plants promoted to them for growing the monarchs. Well, this is the native swan plant. It's the one that brings the swarms of blue butterflies. And on the right are the lolly trees. It's compulsory if you come to planting days that there's lollies there, usually of the wrapped variety, but we make sure that all the children understand which ones are the lolly trees for the later variety that come without wrappers and are really sweet after a strong sun and a heavy rain come juicy. So that's taupata on your right. We plant a lot in that family, and it's also a good medicine. We find that besides the butterflies that come in their initial plantings, the birds will come within 2 years if we plant things like the taupata. If you have a look on our Kotapukaki Facebook page, if you're so inclined to Facebook, it has a lot of our plants and what their uses are. And this is faux. So besides looking at the ecological habitats of blue butterflies or looking at medicine for our tummies, we also look at things that give historical or reference to places of significance. And this is the faux, as in maunga faux, and its importance. So there's nothing on there I can eat. There are things I can use it for medicine, but I haven't ever had the ailment to need it for medicine. So it's like, well, it can be planted just to be, and it can be planted just for the birds. But it's also a very good teaching and reference point on the whenua for the children to know that there's something other than the land that they're standing on. From that point where this picture is taken, they can see maunga whau. And these are the children that can see maunga whau. Did you guys meet those guys in the weekend? No, well, there shoots my whole connection theory. Yeah.
No.
Shouldn't have asked. No. You'll see how many children were there and in a minute. And they're all ages. And you can see how big the harakeke is or how small the children are. Maybe neither of those. There were a lot of children and a lot of playing going on. There is too many built, constructed, OSH-regulated blue, green and yellow playgrounds around. And if you live where I do, most of the time they have to be driven to the playground. Can't just be sent down the road. So Kota Pukaki is very much about growing a 48-hectare playground. And playing with spades. Do you guys know those guys? I think you know those guys. That's you and Piramina, yeah. So, yeah, and play and work and restoration and plants and building your playgrounds. These guys actually were building their own playgrounds. No OSH tape in sight. They bought grandmothers and mothers. Also, it allows for a time in which that they can come and learn alongside them and not feel that they have to know everything before they teach their own children. You know, it's an opportunity in these planting days or just with this project to come and learn together for the parts that have been missing and just actually hang out with the kids, play and just relax, have an event that's free. You don't have to book in, there's no fee. You just go, breathe the air, have a good time, have lunch, wander home. And get out of the office. This is Diana. Diana is the business executive for Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei Corporate. She has a huge workload and it's very hard sometimes to get out of the office. And this is just another way to share and do some work that you can do alongside your child. And yeah, I think that speaks for itself, as Beth said. Some photos just speak for themselves, don't they? That's why they didn't know all the children. They didn't all come together. But what this photo is the result of doing a karanga out to the children when you need some help. They'd been running through the trees and playing through the gun emplacements. They'd done a bit of planting and they were doing their own thing. And they'd got to a point in the day where they were just running in packs. And I just still needed a little bit more help. Their parents all laughed at me when I tried to call out to them, including my own daughter. And, you know, calling, and they wouldn't come, and they wouldn't come. I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? So I just started calling to them. Ice cream, chocolate, ice cream, chocolate. And they all came. And the parents that had been laughing, I said, and the children said, well, where's the ice cream and the chocolate then? And I said, I didn't say I had ice cream and chocolate. I just said ice cream and chocolate. And your parents will get you some on the way home. I don't know if they did, but I really hope they did. Mine had to wait a day. But so once I got them all together, they were able to then help and do some more work and just refocus again for the trees. So a lot of this project is, sure, come plant some, enjoy the birds, go for a walk, pick some fruit from the orchard and do your thing. But every now and again, the whenua really needs your help. And it's just an opportunity to all gather together and just give a bit more awhi to get the next bit done. And it's been very much like that for the last 10 years. A lot of it flows, but every now and again, you just need all the people to come together and give a hand together. And they were still smiling, even if after they found out, well, some of them, Muki, were still smiling even if they found out I didn't have the ice cream or the chocolate. And they took buckets of kauri, and it was the first time in 10 years that kauri had been planted on the whenua, because there's a horrible disease that's going through and threatening kauri throughout the north part of the country where they grow, and it took a little while for us to find some stocks that were safe enough to plant back from a secure nursery that actually had some without the disease. And these kauri were this high, and they had been growing in the nursery since 2007. So it takes a little while to get a kauri just started before the children could plant them. Still smiling, even there to walk down the garden path to go and find where they had to go. Okay. And it wasn't all about the trees, it was all about the little things as well. So I had a lot of kids coming up and going, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" And it was so fantastic. It was amazing staff and students and other people. I can go, "Well, what do you go and ask them? Go and ask them. Go and ask them." And it really showed that as a collective, there was a lot of knowledge there to be shared. Yeah. And it wasn't all about the kids. These guys are fantastic. They work so hard. They're from the corrections department down in Panmure. They turn up on planting days because they get stuck in a van and get told they have to do X amount of hours for whatever they've done, traffic fines or otherwise, and they have to do their community service. And when they first started coming, the corrections department, I'm not going to give them a hard time, but when they first started coming, they had to wear orange vests because then they would be clearly seen by the other parts of the community, and they had to work in a separate block away from children. You know, if you've got traffic fines, you don't want to work near children. And you know, and the other thing was, if you're on punishment, you can only have white bread sandwiches with lunch and sausage and heart disease causing grated cheese. Well, we weren't going to have a bar of this, because the only way to restore this whenua, or we like to see it as a conversion from the exotic entanglement over to the native life. The only way to do this is if the community actually get together and move as one. So in my stubbornness, I said, take off the vests, you work with us, you eat with us, we're all one community. I don't care about traffic fines. Birds don't care about traffic fines. And these guys came to life. They came to life, and they were just as interested as the children about what trees that were there. They were just as interested to see how the best way to planting was. They had gone from their whole demeanour of, got to get some hours done, what time are we leaving, to, hey, this is pretty cool. Are we coming back next week? And they do, they keep coming back. And actually, we've got a high return rate of people that were doing their PD hours, their periodic detention hours, to just coming back because they like it there and they want to learn and be part of that. With every hard morning's work, there is lunch. And this is really important. This is really important for Ngāti Whātua. It's not about the free labour, or it's not just about the education and then the energy exchange to say, well, you've come and done this and we'll teach you about what it is. Hello, my darling. It's all right. It's also about, you fed us, we'll feed you, we'll sit together and we will eat together. So for Ngāti Whātua, it's just really important with their land that they are able to provide this manaaki. And they do it really well. At least once a year it's hanging, and the rest of the time it's barbecue, but I've never heard a complaint yet. And again, the harakeke from the lamb was used to make the kono for eating the kai. So it didn't have to be the kai. It can be the things that bring the kai. And these are just some more shots from other times. We have a group from the City Mission that only come on planting days, and the rest of the year they seem to disappear into the fabric of the city again. But they always know when to come out. This particular site, we did 5,000 plants in 3 hours, And I had to actually get them to slow down because it was looking like 5,000 plants in about 20 minutes. And the only way to get them to slow down was A, to send them at the bottom of the hill and get them to walk up the hill as they planted instead of planting down. And to also say the hangi won't come out any faster. You might as well plant them properly. And sometimes it's just about the locals catching up with those that haven't seen before. And this is really, really important. When we first started, you know, we planted 2,000 plants before we got the approval of the Reserves Board and the Auckland City Council. And in those days, when it wasn't advertised out to the general public, it was definitely advertised out to the local whānau. And what they found was they hadn't been out on that whenua for a very long time, because if it's mowing like a golf course, you don't have to go to the edge to see the harbour. You can just stand at the wharekai. And people hadn't been going out on the whenua for a very long time because there was nothing to harvest. And they had also been just catching up at their relatives at expensive 21st weddings or sad tangi. And they hadn't actually just been going for a walk out on their whenua and catching up with their cousins and having a really good chat and getting their children to do the planting, where they sat around and had a really good gab. And it was very much about, that was what it was also supposed to be a lot about. And that's just growing, and they've come back year in year and year and year. Auntie Dawny, where did all those kids go? And it's about whānau that don't live there all the time as well. Ratu and his children, who were in the front row. Ratu lives out at Haranui, but he's from Orake. And it's just an opportunity to be able to go home with your children and say, we belong here too. And some of these children, well, actually every child that you've seen in their shots are younger than the project. So they've grown up with these trees. The ones that have come back year in, year out, they've grown up. And I now get, when's planting day starting? When are we doing planting day? Because of course they're on giving out the lollies, but also because they've grown up with those trees. Yeah, so, you know, before, after. So this is this year. I got in big trouble for using this photo because she said her hair wasn't quite right. Yeah, it's funny. But she knows what the tree is, she knows how big it's going to grow, and she knows that she can eat it when it fruits in summer. And I think it's more about that than thinking, how many did we plant? And Ko Te Pūkaki is very much about that, connecting to which one and why. And the next generation, trying to keep up with their big sister. Yeah, we couldn't actually get that plant off her for a good 10 minutes because she thought it was hers and she missed the planting bit. And there's some days that it's just underwater up there and there's no children in sight. And it's back to really about, you know, it's just about the adults having the opportunity. At the beginning of every planting day, I say put your hand up if you haven't planted before. And it usually varies between about 15 to 50% of the people have never planted a tree before. And the value in that alone, just being able to feel that you can go somewhere and they've got a spade. We had 150 people 2 weeks ago and 40 spades. They all went within 2 minutes. There was probably about another 40 people that just didn't own a spade. And, you know, that to me is a type of craziness in itself, but it gives people an opportunity to come and actually do something. They haven't got the land, or they don't have the tools, they don't know what to get, and they don't know where to get started. And they come and they, you know, I point them in the direction of the nearest tool shop. And yeah, again, it's that bigger picture before was the children planting the kai gardens and apple trees. We've got 80 apple trees up there now. Oh, sorry, 80 fruit trees. And again, the rangatahi planting herb gardens and planting vegetables, herbs and natives together. You don't have to have this kind of just the bird food over here, just the weaving material over here, oh, we'll put some food over here. That can all be mixed together as one. And kids that just didn't think planting lemon trees were cool. He looks after that lemon tree like, you know, it's gold now. So in 11 years, there's 160,000 plus plants being planted on the golf course. Yeah. I think, yeah, that just sort of says it for itself. So. Yeah. And the man down giving the demonstration on your left, he spent the first year working with a weed eater and looking after the trees by himself while the project was being decided which direction it was going to be going in and how big it was going to be, and the council decided what the contract would look like, and should we take the stipulation out that said the grass will be no more than 20 centimetres high. While everyone was out deciding and debating and pricing and working out the detail, that man was just out there every day getting rid of the weeds and looking after the trees. So it was fantastic when somebody else turned up 4 Saturdays a year. It certainly warmed those that were holding the fort. So what's been planted now? This is actually a little bit incorrect. I quickly borrowed this picture from another plant. This whole blue line here has actually been planted to there now. And everywhere it's been planted in red, it's actually been planted twice, because we've put in the first layer and then we've gone back, and most of those photos that you saw before are out by the gun emplacements which were put in place when the Russians were coming. That's where the painting was, and the concrete, and the children were playing. That's where the Kerudou chocolate went in. This area here is the wet area, where you saw those people planting without the children. We're just waiting. We've been waiting 10 years for the approval to get the diggers in to get back out the fill, because every time there was a house built or a big building here, we filled in the hole which the natural spring came up in, because you know we kind of had a habit throughout Tamaki of filling in the holes every time we put a building in. So we've been waiting for 10 years, and this year I nearly got it planted, but we missed the digging season for consent by 2 months, and it put us out by a year. So next year this will be all, there's about 3,000 plants out there at the moment. The rest will be dug out, new islands formed, birds such as tangi that only come for part of the year can come for all year, and there'll be about 7,000 new wetland plants put in on the headland. Very unusual place to have a wetland. So yeah, that's kind of, parts of the golf course have gone. What we learnt there, and what we shared there, and what people came to do there, we've taken other places. This is 67 hectares over on the North Shore of really rich Kerudou habitat, but it has huge amount of weed infestation through the lot and all the edges. It has 105 private owner neighbours, and it's part of the, it's actually 8 reserves to make the network, and it's the home for Kaipariki project. So what Kota Pukaki does, we share with the Kaipariki project, and we run the training programs together. We share our nurseries and our knowledge, and we do the same out in twin streams as well, and with restoration groups with Maungawhau. And this is what Kaipariki is about. Look familiar? If you learn something, share it. And it's definitely the theme of Kota Pukaki. And that's how people can get involved, because people often say, oh, that's nice. Now what? So our next planting day for Bastion Point is a very good question. It's the third Saturday in July. Yeah, and then there's one more as well, but something like that. We were just talking about calendars, yeah. So, yeah, thank you. Anyone have questions? Bees, you focused a lot about planting birds. What about bees? Do you have beehives? Oh, we wish. Because we've got an orchard there and we're wanting to have bees there. We've had 80 chooks at one stage. Yeah, so very much lived out around the gun emplacements and for fertilising and for weeding out in the bush blocks. And we wanted bees as well, but the thing is it's quite a lot of maintenance to assign to one staff member, so we're hoping that some beautiful beekeeper will come along and say, we really want to put our hives out here with your orchard. Thanks. Hold on, Donna.
Don't want to hold my money.
Sorry? Oh, yeah.
There's a family there that hire up. You might have a website.
Oh, okay.
Some things, that'd be perfect.
Oh, yes, I know which one you mean. Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've had lots of different plans over the years, because the other thing I didn't even say was that when you've got so many materials that are for food and for medicine and for rāranga, and you've got children running around, we don't use any chemicals. So it's one of the largest reserves in Auckland that's managed that way, and it's the same with all our projects, so Matariki project as well in our section in Twin Streams. So bees is definitely needs to be part of that picture. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You had a lovely photo there of the kaka. Are they used for house building here? Do we know?
Yeah. Yeah, for tukutuku mainly. But I mean, it's pretty multi-purpose. There's lots of different things that can be useful, but we use it really for the backbone on the tukutuku panels. Yeah.
I recall that in some islands, in the Cook Islands, that's the thatching all around the house.
Yeah.
And recently on Nukuhimo, there's this renaissance of getting back to those materials for house building.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We can do that too with korare as well as a stronger one for the stems of the harakeke. Yeah, we can use that as well. But nowhere near as much as we could, and it's because the resources haven't been there in bulk to be able to do that with. There might be a few plantings here and there with some, but there hasn't been enough of a resource. But with what we've planted now, there is definitely, people can start practicing that again. Yeah, it's a scale. Quite often it's just a scale of being able to harvest enough materials.
Nō reira, te mihi nui mātua mahi manaaki ki te whenua ki ngā tangata ki ngā uri whakatupu hoki mō tēnā koe, te tomahi rangatira. Join me again in a final round of applause for Char. And